The idea that the organization of Europe had to come from citizens themselves was already voiced over 50 years ago by prominent political figures such as de Gaulle or Spinelli. But while more and more powers were being transferred at the European level, the European citizens only had to wait until the 1970s for being represented through the European Parliament. The introduction of the European Citizen Initiative through the Treaty of Lisbon in 2007 marks a major step in the struggle to give citizens a more active role in European decision-making. In this section, you will have the opportunity to explore what were the major steps into making this ECI a reality, and who were the main actors involved in pushing this.
European Citizen Initiative did not fall from heaven, did not just emerge. The European Citizen was a project, an idea that was developed within a small group of people, Eurotopia, Initiative and Referendum Institute, Mehr Demokratie. We together then organized the ECI campaign. We made this proposal to introduce into the European treaties, to introduce into the planned European Constitution instruments for the citizens, where citizens can raise their voice, where citizens have a foot in the door in Brussels politics, where they have a say on the agenda, on what is treated with. So this was the idea of the European Citizen Initiative, and from that time it took a long way until today. The first thing was the European Convention, where it was adopted not exactly in the wording that we proposed it. It was a bit more reluctant, a bit more restrained, but anyway it was in the treaties. And then it took 9 years until we started working on the regulation within the European Parliament.
The ECI has been, as a concept, that the people are involved in European politics there for as long as the European integration process has gone on. Already Charles de Gaulle said that Europe will also be founded when the people of Europe have been really involved by saying yes to this Europe. And this has gone on, and since the 70s we have had more than 50 times that people could vote on European issues in almost all European countries. Not all, but many countries have had referendums on Europe. But this always was on the national level, and I would say since the idea of the political union of Europe, that means since the end of the Cold War, that Europe is not only economic integration but also political one, the idea of course of a European constitution and of a European democracy has been evolving. And in this framework, of course, the idea that how the European citizens can be involved was a very important idea. And I was myself involved in a network called Eurotopia, which was founded just after the changes in Eastern Europe. And Eurotopia meant at that time we looked into the future of Europe, future of European democracy. And in this framework, the idea of a European constitution, of European initiative right, of a European referendum was also very important. And during the 90s, we had every half a year, we had an assembly of European citizens gathering in European places, 20 different places. At that time, we had no internet, no email, so we did basically look into the newspapers of Europe and try to see which Europeans are involved in this debate, and we sent letters to them, we involved them, and on that way, this discussion came forward.
Yes, my involvement in the ECI started already a long time before I was a member of the European Parliament. So I work for more democracy, for more direct democracy, participatory democracy for 33 years now. I'm the founder of an organization called Mehr Demokratie, which did that in Germany and which changed German law and German constitutional law in many aspects. So we introduced direct democracy in the German cities and the German Länder or states. And I then realized that it's not enough to have direct democracy on a local level, on a regional level, even on a national level, if we do not have it on the European level. The problem is that more and more decisions are dealt with on the European level, and if we do not manage to democratize the European decision-making process, then more internationalization and more Europeanization of politics will mean the end of democracy, in the sense of the end of people being involved in decision making.
The ECI as a model is based on many different experiments already in direct democracy across Europe, maybe across the whole world also. And we have a lot of countries like Austria which are taking the lead in this and taking this very seriously. How does this ECI compare to what we have in force, for instance, in Austria, where it is used very often?
I mean, the ECI as a tool as such, compared to many local, regional and national tools, is a very weak tool, because it's just a possibility to invite somebody else to reflect on something. So it's basically a proposal right, a submission right, which is a rather weak binding instrument. But it's more, you can say, the comprehensivity of it, which is the big innovation, that it's on a level which 27 member states with 375 million eligible voters, and it's in this transnational structure which this is so new. And it's also, and this has of course to do with the European system as such, it has to do that the European Commission has a very special role as a semi-administrative, semi-governmental body, which is the only one to formally put initiative for legislation forward. So the European citizens are, through this right, equal to the European Parliament, which can also propose such legislation, and the member states. And it's the, let's say, the highest possibility of influencing the Commission under the current rules. And in that way, it's of course fulfilling the idea that on the European level there should be a participative principle, and this has been followed up with this European Citizen Initiative.
So we say that basically this kinds of put the citizen on the equal footing than the Council and the EP in terms of asking or requesting the the EC to legislate. Is it really like that? Because maybe the citizens don't benefit from the extensive network that members of parliament can have, or the council obviously have, and the informal discussions. Practically, is there any room for hope that the EC will respect this instrument in the same way that it honors 90% of the times requests from the council or the European Parliament?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's basically an obligation to deal with it on an equal footing. But of course, as it is a new thing and it's a very, let's say, a complex thing, because it involves so many actors and so many question marks, it's also understandable that it takes time to evolve. And it's only the principle which is equal. The procedure is not the same, because the procedure is only limited to agenda setting. The Parliament and the Council is also a decision maker, and European citizens are not decision makers on the European level. So we have only one leg out of this equal footing yet. The second equal footing leg would be that the Europeans could also decide, for instance, on European constitutional change. And in the procedure, we have also the limitation that the European Citizen Initiative right, as it is designed now, cannot propose any constitutional changes. So you can say it's a principle, but already when it goes to the next step of the procedure, and of course to the practice, it's limited. And this is a problem, and this we have to solve in the future.
Last question is, many people have believed that this was introduced as a necessity to reinvigorate interest and passion for the EU construction anyway from citizens, because the parliament, which was representing citizens in elections, were waning, participation in elections was waning. Is there genuinely hope that this will serve its purpose, that interests, that the ECI will spur a general reinvigoration of interest nationally?
We have no idea, because I mean the passion of Europe, the passion for Europe, that's something which is very individual. everybody has another perspective on that. Of course, many young people see Europe as their living area. They have never had to show passports at the borders. They want to have free movement. They want to influence where they are living. And this, of course, is a very new idea that you as a citizen are not only a citizen in the country you are living, but also a citizen wherever you are working and paying taxes. So it's a modern understanding of citizenship, and this only has developed during the last 10, 20 years. And when you look out over the world, this is just unique. It's not existing anywhere else. So in that way, of course, this question maybe can be answered in 50 or 100 years, but not now. But many, of course, hope that this is a necessity, but not sufficient, of course, to ensure that Europe will become a genuine democracy, and we in Europe can, and we Europeans can be genuine European democrats. But it's too early, but it's, of course, a step. Without it, it would be much more difficult than it is with it.
The ECI for us is only the first step. We need much more, but this is the first step where we succeeded in proposing an instrument that was already implemented in the existing treaties. I say this because also now when we discuss about the ECI, still the Commission thinks that laws can be proposed only by the Commission, can only come from above. But the ECI itself is a proof that it can go the other way around. The ECI would not exist if not a group of citizens would have proposed that and would have campaigned for that for a very long time.
It was within the convention where many discourses were held on how can we do that, how can we integrate it into the Lisbon Treaty, and then it was within the European Parliament and in the Commission where we worked on the regulation. In the end, there was the trilogue where many things were changed, where it was a compromise between Parliament, Commission and the Council, and then it came into force 1st of April this year.
For the purpose of decreasing the legitimacy gap, the deficiencies of the Union, there was always over years talk about direct democracy, participatory democracy, and this was, and there was one point that the convention dreamed of, a European referendum right. But more modest assembly members, they looked for another instrument, and this is what we call for participatory democracy, and this is the reason why we've got a so-called principle of participatory democracy, which was finally enshrined in the Constitution Treaty, Article 147. But then, as we all know, dissipated along with the disappearance of the high-flying idea of a constitution.